Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Balance and Breakthroughs. I am your host, as always, Wil Singleton, and this podcast is about the moment in life that shakes us to the core, the moment that challenges everything we believe about ourselves, our purpose, and the direction of our lives. And sometimes those moments lead us to a breakthrough instead of a breakdown. But either way, it's never expected. It's never convenient. So today's episode is one of those conversations that's going to stay with you. My guest today is Barry Atkins, a father whose life changed forever when his 18-year-old son, Kevin, died from alcohol poisoning during his freshman year in college. Like many parents who experience unimaginable loss, Barry has faced this question that no one wants to confront. How do you move on when the unthinkable happens? In honor of his son, he has walked over 1,400 miles from Arizona to Montana, carrying Kevin's ashes in what he called Kevin's last walk. Along this journey, Barry shared Kevin's story with students, parents, and communities across the country, hoping to prevent another family from experiencing the same heartbreak that he has. So today we're going to talk about grief, resilience, and what it means to transform tragedy into a mission that saves lives. This is probably one of the most powerful conversations I'm going to have on the show today. So it's going to be something every parent, every student, every leader should hear. So sit down, turn off all your distractions, and stay tuned because we're about to dive in right now. Barry, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Will. I'm looking
All
forward to it.
right. Can you tell us a little bit about just yourself? You know, as things unfolded, I mean, people hear your story, and can you introduce us to you and Kevin?
You know, pretty unremarkable. Middle class people living in a middle class neighborhood with
Okay.
a middle class job. Um, I never dreamed in a million years that I would be doing this. I was not somebody who did any public speaking. Um, I just lived a middle class life, right? Nothing extraordinary there. I grew up in Montana. I lived up in Alaska for a while, worked on a fishing boat up there, came down to Arizona to go to school, and the rest is history. But prior to July 10th of 2005, it was pretty unremarkable, Will.
Okay.
There's some
Okay.
really we could dive in. We could probably spend an hour talking about, just the basics, but it wasn't anything that you'd go, oh, wow, we
What
could
was
see this
Kevin like?
coming.
What was Kevin like?
He was involved in the Future Farmers of America, the FFA.
Okay,
So
cool.
he was all about raising pigs and riding mules. And we had a neighbor that had mules. So he was over there helping take care of the mules all the time. As a student, he was an awful student, right? He was just like me,
Yeah.
barely got out of high school.
Hmm.
Uh, but I remember him after the high school graduation ceremony. He gave me a hug and whispered, "Thanks for not giving up on me, Dad."
Oh, wow. Those are the moments that really count. I love those times, those experiences when people remind you that you were important to them. Yeah.
And
So,
and to give you an indication of how oblivious I am about things, um, he wanted to buy a truck right after he graduated from high school, and he met my I made him give me 3 months worth of insurance payments and car payments before I was going to co-sign that loan, right?
okay.
And I'm hoping he'll find one from a private party. We go down to the credit union and sign papers and be out of there in 5 minutes. He found one at a dealership. And I personally have a healthy dislike for that process. And I remember sitting down in the financial guy's office, and the first thing that guy said to me was, "How about some life insurance?" I'm like, "Look, dude, I'm not here for life insurance. Well, let's move on."
Mm.
And he said, "I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about your son. I'm that guy." I'm that guy who rather indignantly told him that 18-year-old boys don't need life insurance because they don't die.
Wow.
But I was wrong. They do die. He wouldn't
Yeah.
live long enough to make a single payment on that truck.
Mm, 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 mm. So when people hear your story today, they see the mission. Can you take us to the beginning? What happened the night that he died?
It was the day he moved out. It was the day he moved out on his own. Um, it was not a big deal. Um, he loaded everything in the back of his truck. I walked out front with him like I normally do, gave him a hug, told him that I loved him and to be careful, and watched him drive away. And it was the last time I saw him alive.
Mm,
That night, his friends decided to throw a housewarming party for him. Started with a keg of beer,
hmm
moved on to shots. He left a voicemail for his sister that night talking about how drunk he was and how he loved his nephew Colin like more than anything in the world. Didn't sound like a big deal, right?
hmm
Shortly after that, he passed out. The people at the party laid him in his bed on his side in case he vomited. The party was still actually going on. They went in and shaved his head and his legs while he was passed out because he's just passed out.
Right.
But his buddy Craig was worried about him and kept going back in to check on him. Around 4 a.m., calls started coming into 911. First calls were difficulty breathing. Next calls were not breathing. My son died alone in a hospital while I slept peacefully in my bed.
Mm.
The
Man,
next morning, it we're sitting around drinking coffee, talking about what we're going to do or not do.
hmm
The doorbell rings, and I open the door and I see two police officers and somebody in plain clothes. That should have been a big red flag, right?
hmm
It should have been. But again, I'm that guy. It didn't even occur to me that something bad had happened. One of the officers and the person in plain clothes stayed by the front door. The other officer walked in and stood in front of a brown chair that Kevin had sat in a couple weeks before and talked about how his life was finally beginning. He said there'd been an accident. Your son is dead. We asked who because we have a number of children. They said it was Kevin, and he handed me his driver's license. Pretty final about it when a police officer hands you your child's driver's license, because until that exact moment in time, at least for me, I was holding out hope that this was
Yeah.
all a big mistake. You misspelled the last name. Get out of here.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
How do you process that? I mean, how do you even deal with that in the moment when that happens?
You don't.
Yeah.
The world, from my perspective, the world stops turning. It really does. You see people driving down the road and they're like, wait, life is going on? How
hmm
can that be? It's that kind of a moment where for you, the world stops turning for a while.
Yeah. 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 I can only imagine the shock and denial that lasted probably in my experience, it's lasted days, sometimes weeks, where you just it still doesn't register. It still doesn't
You
register.
still think for Kevin, there's times where you think he's going to walk through the door and go, I got you with that one.
Right. Yeah.
You hold out hope for that for a
Mm.
while, like that little punk. He's I'm
Yeah.
gonna get him for this.
Yeah. 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 Man. So, what was some of the hardest questions you had to wrestle with after he passed? I mean,
Well, the biggest thing for me was that I was angry with God.
mm,
That was my thing. And, uh, you know, we're taught to be honest with God, but most of the time we're not. In this case, I unloaded on him, Will.
Hmm.
I unloaded on him. And a couple days later, I had another life-changing event. I'll do my best to describe this. I was laying in bed. It was about 4 o'clock in the morning. And the best way I can describe it is I felt like someone walked in the room. You know that feeling when you're not facing the door and somebody walks in behind you, like, oh, someone's there.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then there was a light I'd never seen before and haven't seen since. And there was a message. The message was that Kevin didn't suffer and something very good would come from this. And then it was gone. I didn't get this, obviously you don't actually hear it,
Right.
but you know it, right?
Right. Right. Right.
And, I wanted to say, wait, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
What? What? And it was gone. And I don't say that because it made everything okay, because it didn't.
Hmm.
But it gave me a mission. And I didn't know what that mission was. I thought maybe that mission was to write a letter to the editor or something.
Hmm.
I had no earthly idea what it was. I certainly didn't know what was coming, but it changed everything for me because it took God from the theoretical into the real.
Wow. Wow. So everything got really, I guess it went from 2D to 4D, in your face, sight, scent, smell, taste, all the senses came alive with your faith,
Yeah.
from you starting off being furiously angry, which I know that's valid. I mean, who wouldn't
Yeah.
be angry with God, was God the only person you were angry with?
I I was upset that that happened. I was frustrated with myself, and forgiveness is certainly something we can talk about because it's an important part of it.
Hmm.
But, what did I miss?
Mm.
What could I have done differently that would have had a different outcome? You definitely question who you are and
Yeah.
how could you have let something as a parent,
Hmm.
how can you possibly let something like that happen?
It's crazy, because I do coaching and counseling, but whenever we experience a traumatic event, how our mind will sometimes work against us, when it will plague us with those kind of questions like, what could you have done differently? What did you do wrong? What didn't you see? All these things, or you should have done this, and you should have, I mean, it just starts to attack us. How did you get past that to, yeah.
It's a God thing. I'm an old hillbilly.
Yeah.
I just that's who I am. And one thing I knew was that we weren't going to play the blame game.
Mm,
I can't bring Kevin back, but what can I do about it?
mm.
And I'm an engineer by trade, so you're thinking, okay, what am I going to do about this? I remember going to pick up his ashes, and you walk into a funeral home and they've got nice pictures on the wall and they're playing music in the background. They take me into an office, sit me down in a big comfortable chair with a desk in front of me, and a funeral director walks in and he sets an urn down in front of me, an urn that holds all the remains of the kid that I burped, changed his diapers. I coached, all his sports, baseball, basketball,
Yeah.
soccer, football. I taught him to shoot a gun and swing a golf club. All the remains of him were sitting in an urn in front of me. And there's one thing I knew at that point, Will, and that was I didn't want to be a victim
Wow.
because the world doesn't need any more victims.
Mm,
We've got plenty. The world needs people who take something bad and they make something very good come from it.
hmm.
And I thought about what I would hope somebody else would do. And for me, the answer was pretty easy. It was just to get out and tell the story, not for the money, because there is no money in the world that'll fix the hurt.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
only thing that helps is to try to make something very good come from such a senseless tragedy. And that's what's led me on this journey.
So what inspired you? Was it a God thing that had you do Kevin's last walk? I mean, because when I read that in the intro, it shook me to the core, you know. Where did that come from?
I'm sure it was a God thing because I'm not all that creative, Will. But in my mind, the way that worked, there's Kevin's favorite movie was Lonesome Dove. It's like a 3 hour movie that had Tommy Lee Jones and Robert Duvall in it.
Okay,
It's
okay,
a Western. I'm not going
okay.
to give away the ending, but
I better go
in
watch it
that
today.
movie was that's where the idea to walk came from. And in the beginning, I was just going to walk the Continental Divide. I didn't really think about the speaking stuff and that kind of thing. But as the thought evolved, it turned into telling the story along the way
Hmm.
and doing all of those kinds of things. And that's in my mind, that's kind of how it all evolved because this grief thing is a very powerful thing.
I
Um,
know.
I tell everybody grief is an energy.
Mm,
It's an incredibly powerful energy. And amazing things can happen. And obviously, I mean, I was still working at the time. People tried to talk me out of it because they were afraid I was going to fail. And I don't blame anybody for that, right? Because it's a
hmm
1,400-mile journey. I got to take 4 months off from work or maybe have to get another job,
hmm
all those kinds of things. But I talked to a lot of people about it. I try to crowdsource as much of the thought process as I can. Sometimes I ignore what people tell me, sometimes I don't. But there was a guy, I'll never forget what he said to me because we were talking about it. And I said, well, I don't know. This is a little sketchy. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. And he said, well, how do you think you'd feel about it in 10 years if you don't do it?
Wow.
And for me, um, that happens in life. We think, well, let's try to do that. Maybe 5 years down the road, I'll do it. But you don't know what your life's going to look like 5 years down the road. And
Hmm.
so for me, that's what sealed the deal. I was going to make it happen.
Wow. So you just made plans, talked to your work, talked to your family. What were some of the last minute mental and physical preparations you made to make this walk?
Well, I had to get somebody to help me set up the speaking stuff. And I reached out to a lot of nonprofits. I reached out to shoe companies. Will, thinking somebody would help me there. Nothing. A local organization here in town, notmykid.org. Um, I talked to them and thought, I don't think they're going to bite on this.
Hmm.
Sure enough, they did. And they set up all of the speaking engagements. They got funding for it, and I'll throw a little kudos out. Todd Stottlemyre is a former major league pitcher,
Hmm.
pitched for the Diamondbacks, I think, and maybe the Mets. No, the Yankees. And he was in for helping with the financial part of it. And there was a lot of people that contributed to this. For me, I did the walking and the talking, but this was in 2007. So the things that are available to you today were not available to you in 2007. Uh, we had logistical questions. I mean, I slept in hotels every night. That's a fairly common question. Did I, sleep in a tent? No, I slept in a hotel every night. We marked the exact spot where I stopped.
Hmm.
And then um, we got up in the morning and went from there. One of the other things, I'll go through some of the common questions is, did you ever think about quitting?
Yeah.
The answer to that is no. But I wasn't even out of Arizona before I started wondering what I got myself into because Phoenix, Gilbert is at about 1,300 feet
Hmm.
elevation.
Hmm.
Flagstaff, which I was pretty close to, is at 7,400 feet. And there's a lot of ups and downs. And I started wondering what I got myself into because I wasn't even out of Arizona yet. I wasn't even close. And I was feeling physically, I was not feeling good. But my mindset was wrong, Will, because I kept thinking about three more states. I still got three states to go.
Hmm.
And I decided to block that out. And again, I think it was a God thing. I just blocked it out. And I said, I thought, I'm going to walk 3 more miles, sit down, take a break, figure out if I can get up and do it again.
Hmm.
And so that was I blocked out three states.
Okay.
I did not want to think about it. And it's a great metaphor for life, I think, because a lot of times we think we can never get there. But what steps can you take today to start you on that path? And for me, it was a physical thing, right? I
Hmm.
can walk, but in life, you look down the road and go, yeah, I'm never going to get there.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
maybe you can.
In a lot of the support groups of NA or AA or any groups that I've been in and spoke at, there's a common phrase about let's just do the 24.
Yeah,
Let's just do the next 24 hours. And I'm often encouraging people, because we all have serious struggles going on in our life. A lot of us just don't talk about it, but I always say let's just do the 24. Forget about the rest of the week. Let's just do today.
do today, do the next hour,
Yep.
get,
Yep. The next hour.
whatever bit you need,
Hmm.
um, because you look at those big things like that and it's overwhelming.
Yeah. It gets
It just
huge.
is.
And I don't think our brain can handle the capacity, the immensity of everything because, like your mission, I think a lot of people try to talk you out of it because they couldn't even wrap their mind around it, but it was bigger than everything. And in order to do something that phenomenal, you've got to break it down into bite-sized pieces. You have I call them micro steps, which is what you were doing. You were doing micro steps on
Right.
Kevin's last walk, and wow. So how did you how were you always planning to speak on this walk? I mean, because you said you were a speaker.
No, I was not. That's something that evolved um, with time. And again, the one thing that I tell everybody is I'm a Christian like everybody else, but I try to be obedient.
Hmm.
Um, Sometimes God hits you over the head with things, and sometimes it's a still small voice, and you have to listen to that voice. Uh, I I lived up in Montana for a while, and I remember being out in the Bob Marshall Wilderness with my uncle one time, and we're sitting on top of some big mountain there, and it's just utter silence. And I turned to him and I said, "Man, it's quiet out here." And he said, "Yeah, and it's got a lot to say."
Ooh, I love that. Yeah.
Because silence, in order to understand things, um, I really think complete quiet is important. In fact, I didn't wear headphones on the walk.
Hmm.
I just wanted to let my mind go where it was going to go without music. I I did it for safety reasons too, but
Yeah, yeah.
because I want to be able to hear what was going on around me.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
but letting your mind go every day, it's pretty therapeutic.
Yeah. Yeah, that's deep. That's really deep, especially in a world of distractions today, where we don't explore or embrace our pain. We find like, 100 different flavors of distraction to get away from it, to numb ourselves,
Yeah,
to escape. So you doing this journey basically raw, no experience in
yeah.
speaking, walking, you know,
I was
it.
awful, Will. My that's the other thing that's pretty cool is um, even at the beginning, people said it was great, but in the back of my mind, I knew it wasn't because I
Mhm.
really didn't understand what public speaking was about. But I happened to be married to a woman who could be honest with me.
Hmm.
And she would sit in the back and say, no, you lost him with that. You need to change it or get rid of it. And in the beginning, I had all kinds of notes, right? I had
Yeah.
papers up there and I'm checking my notes. Um, but I got to the point where I wasn't doing that. And then again, she would coach me, yeah, that's um, you lost him with that. And one of the key things that I landed on was takeaways
Mm.
and stories. Um, I had a guy, a fellow speaker, it's been years ago now. He asked me if I was still speaking at schools, and I am. I still am to this day. And he said, "You shouldn't do that. You're too old."
Hmm. Hmm.
Which I was a little offended by that,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Because I didn't know
But it
there was
occurred
an
to
age limit
me,
to speaking.
yeah. But it occurred to me, he's right. I should just address that right up front. So the first thing I tell everybody is just relax. I'm just here to tell you a story. And
Okay.
as you listen to this story, think about what you want your story to be. And it's amazing. I've had principals say that's the most important thing you said because you could just feel in the room, everybody just kind of,
Yeah.
okay, he's not going to preach to us. He's
Yeah.
just here to tell us
Yeah.
the story.
So were most of the places schools that you went to that you spoke at?
Most of it, not my kids set all that up. And we had to come up with a schedule. Keep in
Hmm.
mind, this is 2007 when tools like what's available today weren't available. But we had to figure out what school, when I was going to be in Flagstaff, when I was going to be in Kanab, when I was going to be in Salt Lake City,
Hmm.
because then they could set speaking stuff up. So I had to come up with a schedule. And I landed on around 90 or 95 miles a week. So then they knew when I was going to be in each town ish. There's still a little bit of driving back and forth, but um, they needed to know when I'm going to be there so that they could set up the schools. And it was mostly schools.
Okay.
Some churches, there was things that happened on the road where somebody would stop and ask me what I'm doing, and they'd say, "Hey, can you come and speak at our school?" I'm like, "Let's make it happen." So we did.
Wow. Wow. Were there any I guess natural the problems that like storms or you know you know what did you do? I mean, because like they're trying to plan your schedule and you're walking.
Yeah. Whether I sort of I had sort of padded some of it, assuming there was going to be weather days and days where I physically couldn't go.
Hmm.
Because I had plantar fasciitis. I had an ingrown toenail that I ended up having surgery on when I got back. I had a bad knee, blisters, and I was worried that I would have days that I couldn't go.
Uh-huh.
But I didn't have a single one of those in the
Wow.
whole time, and we stayed on schedule. Um, there was days I didn't feel like going, Will.
I'll
I
bet.
freely admit I would wake up and go, oh. But I always thought I better get out there and give it a whirl because it might be worse tomorrow. Because we left Arizona in February, which Phoenix is in the desert, so you don't have to worry about snow.
Right.
But Flagstaff's at 7,400 feet.
Hmm.
Utah is pretty high. There was snow, rain, wind. I will say the one thing that bothered me the most on the journey was wind.
Ah.
Because with snow and rain, that you can kind of get comfortable. You wear the right thing, or it's too warm, you take off your jacket, whatever. But with wind, it's just hard to get comfortable because it's blowing in your face or it's blowing behind you or whatever it's
Right.
doing. It just
Right.
wind was the thing that bugged me the most.
Okay. Okay. Tell me about some of the unexpected encounters that you had along this journey. That just really touched you.
There was several of them. I mean, every day people stopped and asked me what I was doing out there. If it was raining, almost every car that went by would stop and ask if I needed a ride. But people stopped, and quite often they wanted to tell their story. Uh, the one that I will never forget, I was outside of Flagstaff. I think I had been walking a couple days outside of Flagstaff, And I saw a car go by and the brake lights go on. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna take a little break and talk to this person. And the guy gets out and he says, "Did you speak at Flagstaff High School a few days ago?" And I said, "I did." And he gave me a hug and he said his son came home for the first time and told him what happened at school.
Wow. Wow. So it was opening up dialogue with families. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's powerful. That's powerful.
it's and there's been other instances since then, but that one, I tell everybody I didn't have any pain the rest of the day. After you hear something like that, you're like,
Right.
yeah, I'm good.
Did any of these experiences during this walk change your perspective on grief or just life and living?
It helped me to understand that if you have the ability to make a change, I like this phrase. If you have the ability to make a change, you have the responsibility to make that happen. And I learned that everybody's got a story.
Mm,
Everybody's got a story. Everybody knows somebody who has been involved with addiction
yeah.
in some form or another. And um, the story doesn't end there, Will.
Mm,
Um, One of the questions that I've been asked a number of times is what's next for you? Or, what's your call to action? And I always thought, well, I'm doing the speaking. I wrote a book. I walked to Montana.
right, right.
What else do I need to do? But it occurred to me, and again, I think it's a God thing, that maybe what's next isn't really about me. Maybe it's about getting everybody else to do something like what I did. We're going to
Wow.
call it the Million Mile Challenge. It is not ready to go yet. But the idea is everybody's going to sign up. They can define how far they want to walk and how long it's going to take them. And they'll be able to tell us their story and give us a picture and see if together we can get to 1 million miles.
Wow. Wow. That's that's incredible.
We'll see if we can make it. There's a lot of logistics around this,
I'm
Will,
sure.
trying to get the website up and stuff. But it turns it from being about me to being about all these other stories out there.
Yeah, yeah. It really turns the mission into a ministry, you know,
Yeah.
that everybody has a piece of because, I mean, the whole balanced and breakthrough theme is real people with real stories that are real heroes. And so many stories are untold, and I want people to tell them because we make an impact, whether we like it or not, yeah, so 1 million miles, yeah, yeah,
I think
yeah.
we can get there. I hope we can.
Uh,
I mean, I think, and we're going to allow people to, we're calling it the Million Mile Challenge. We're going to make sure that you're able to invite others or challenge others
mhm,
to join with you. And, you can do your walking whenever you want. You define
mhm.
how far and how long it's going to take you. You can bite off a little chunk in the beginning and then come back and do a bigger chunk. I'm fine with that.
So when you're in the schools, because me personally, I love speaking to high school students because they're the most real audience I will ever have, because they will let you know if you suck or if you are the bomb. They are not
They can
polite.
see through fake. They can
Right,
see through
right.
fake.
So when you're there, did you ever have any moments with any of the teenagers where they came up to talk to you and you could tell that you've made an impact?
There's been a number of times that students have talked to me. Probably, again, probably the most significant one wasn't the day that I spoke. It was 2 weeks later.
Hmm.
Um, I told his story, told Kevin's story. A couple weeks later, I got an email from the school. There had been a party. At that party, someone passed out. The student that had heard Kevin's story wanted to call 911. The other students didn't want him to. So he took the student that was passed out, put him in his car, drove him to an urgent care facility, who called 911 and saved his life.
Wow. So after hearing your story, he was able to act beyond the peer pressure to save the young man or the young lady's life. Yeah, that's
Young man's life. Yeah.
hmm hmm wow. Wow. Okay.
It's kind of interesting. One of the schools, they typically will have them write a thank you note. And, you would expect it to just be, hey, thanks for coming out. Have a nice day. But some of the feedback, I'll never forget, one of them said, there's no way God wasn't involved in this
Hmm.
in some way. Because in schools, I'm not allowed to tell that part of the story. It's certainly implied,
Right. Yeah,
but
absolutely.
that's the coolest part is when somebody says that. And I've had students come up and say, is faith part of this?
Hmm.
Yes, it is. So they see through
Hmm.
uh, they see through that.
Yeah. And that's very cool, because I don't believe
Yeah.
we have to overtly preach the word to be an example of the living word. You know, it should come out of our pores. They should see
Yeah,
it in your
I'm a fan
energy.
of yeah, I'm a fan of Saint Francis of Assisi.
Hmm.
Preach the gospel every day, sometimes use words.
I love that. I love that.
And that's my thing is I'm not a in your face about stuff. Just listen to what I have to say.
Yeah. Yeah. Often when I have somebody in my office and they want to, talk about faith, and they ask me about mine, I said, it's okay. I'm not going to baptize you today. Maybe next week.
Yeah.
But I said I'm just a normal guy, just trying to live right and with my faith. And if you ever have any questions, we can go there. But
Yeah,
yes, it's a safe place. It's a safe place. And I think just being having that easy demeanor really is the greatest testimony when it comes to, you know, this faith walk you were on. Really, because that's what it is. It was a faith walk.
it was.
Yeah, yeah. So during that walk, were there ever any moments when you started to doubt, the whole journey?
I was committed to it. I worried about getting injured, right? Stepping off the road to avoid a car
Hmm.
or, getting sick. Who knows what might happen.
Hmm.
I was worried about that, but I was you have with something like this, uh, it's about the commitment,
Yeah, yeah.
you know. And it's very different than just saying, I was just talking to a lady the other day about this because she said, wow, you did that. And I said, yeah, I did. I was really committed to it. And she said, because she knew someone who said they wanted to walk the Appalachian Trail. They just wanted to go off and walk it.
Yeah.
And they only made it like 2 days. They're like, I ain't doing this anymore. I'm done. But they weren't committed to it. They didn't have a reason to do it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you got to have a why. You got to have a purpose bigger than yourself. And I think once you have that, you forget how to quit. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's why 20 years later, I'm still doing it. People are like,
yeah.
you still do that? Yeah, I do because it's the only thing I know.
Okay. So do you do any other walks?
No, I still walk regularly, but again, people said, well, why don't you organize a walk? And I'm like, I don't want to do that. You spend a bunch of time and 30 people show up.
Right,
I,
right, right.
I, I don't, I attend, I go to schools and tell the story, but no.
Okay.
This cured me mostly of big projects because
Right, right.
you take on something like this and it consumes your life.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. So, your story highlights the real dangers of binge drinking. What do you wish every young person understood about alcohol and peer pressure today?
I wish they understood how important it is to wait until you start, the easier it is to become an addict. And regarding peer pressure, I will ask you this question. I may not get the answer I expect, but for me, you think all these people you're going to school with, that they matter to you. How
Mm,
many friends do you still have from high school that you talk to all the time?
probably a handful.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
For me, it's one or two.
Yeah.
All these other people that are around you that you think you need to impress when you get out of school, they're going to be gone. You might have them as a friend on TikTok or Facebook
Facebook.
or
Hmm.
Twitter or the your friend, they're your virtual friend. So that
Yeah.
the whole peer pressure thing, who cares what they think?
Yeah.
They're not going to be part of your life when you graduate.
Hmm. Yeah. How do you think it's received when, you talk to young people about peer pressure? Um,
I I don't focus a lot on peer pressure. I'll give you the three things that I focus on.
okay.
Um, I do talk about peer pressure because that's some fun sometimes I talk about at the end. But the three things I want them to take away, the first one's about decision making. Because the two most important decisions you're ever going to make in your life are about drugs and alcohol. It isn't even
Hmm.
close, because we all know stories.
Hmm.
You need to educate yourselves about the dangers of drug and alcohol abuse as if your life depends upon it,
Hmm.
because it does.
Yeah.
And the second thing is about adversity.
Hmm.
Bad stuff happens to everybody. The way you respond to adversity is going to define your life. Notice
Yeah.
I didn't say might,
Yeah.
it
It's going
will.
to. Yeah, it's
Pain
inevitable.
is pain is fertile ground for radical change.
Mm, mm,
Don't waste that pain.
yeah. Don't
And the
waste it.
third thing is about forgiveness. It was easy for me to forgive the guys at the party because this was Kevin's decision, right? This was his choice.
Hmm.
And it's easy for me to forgive my kid because that's what parents do.
Hmm.
But the one person that was really hard to forgive was me. And it took 1,400 miles and 5 pairs of shoes to find a way to forgive myself, but I have. And I
Wow.
heard a pastor describe it best once. He said that anger and vengeance lead to one thing:
Yeah.
destruction. Forgiveness leads to healing. And sometimes the most important person you need to forgive is yourself. Nobody's perfect, man. We all make mistakes.
Yes, we do. Yes,
It's
we do.
what are you going to do about
Hmm. Yeah, I think sometimes people will lose sight of the real reasons for forgiveness because they're caught in this cycle of really self-abuse. Where they just can't stop replaying their greatest failures and everything they did wrong.
it?
And I understand learning from it. In fact, I just did a video not too long ago about, are you counting the losses or are you counting the lessons? Because you know it's not about what I lost, it's about the lesson I learned from that to propel me to the next level. And it's scary when I see people get trapped in that cycle of a losing mentality. And forgiveness is key.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So looking back, are there conversations like, what do you wish families were talking to their kids about today?
I wish that they were talking more about what can really happen because nobody ever believes it will happen to them. And it's a conversation that's hard to have, right?
Mm,
Um, and my advice to parents is the same advice that I give to students. Uh, if you want to start that conversation, if as parents you want to start that conversation, let your kids overhear you talking about something you read about
mm,
where someone died of an overdose or something like that. You don't have to be talking to them, but if they're in the room, and you know this, kids are always listening to
yeah,
what you're saying, even
always.
if you're talking to your spouse,
Hmm.
they're always listening. And the same thing for students. Let your parents overhear you say something to somebody on the phone.
Yeah.
And that's going to start the conversation. Wait, what was that all about? Because it's
Okay.
hard to start that conversation. But I didn't, I talked a lot about drugs with my kids, but I didn't talk about drinking because we have a family member who's an alcoholic, and Kevin always talked about how stupid he was and how he was going to never let that happen to him.
Hmm.
In hindsight, I think real stories, uh, especially if they're close to home, and that's why we come back to what we talked about in the beginning. Um, you need to have these stories, and they need to be somehow documented, whether it's a video or
Yeah.
written out, because you can look at someone and go, well, they seem to have their act together.
Hmm.
Well, guess what? They didn't always have their act together.
Yeah. Yeah. I want the story of how you made it through every day and didn't jump off the Skyway Bridge. I want that story because
Right.
that's the testimony of resilience, and more people need to hear that, we all see the end of the story where they're already on the yacht and they're the next celebrity or the next athlete, but I want to hear the story before that when you got a thousand no's and you
Exactly.
were almost homeless and you didn't have electric for several months. I mean, I want to hear that story because those are the things that we're going to encounter. And I want to know, how did you make it? You know, and I think that's what makes your
Yeah.
story, your walk so powerful because it is so raw and so real. And you didn't hide it, you didn't cover it up like so many people do or stuff it. You experienced it
Right.
without headphones during those 14,000 miles. Just you and the voices in your head. That probably would have made me crazy. Well, crazier. But yeah,
Right.
that's really amazing.
Well,
How
the one
can,
thing on a
go ahead.
humorous note, the you get to look at geology a little more when you're doing something like this because you're walking, you're not driving. So
Right.
you blew by all of those mountains and that little thing over there, that cliff with a hole in it or
Hmm.
something. You get to see a lot more of that.
Yeah.
Takes your mind off everything.
Yeah, yeah, that's very cool. I think that would probably kill teenagers today because they would have to unattach themselves from their cell phone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, how do parents, this is a really, how do parents build the kind of relationship needed to help their kids feel safe enough to talk about these things with them?
There's a foundation you need there first of
Mm,
trust.
hmm.
Uh, they need to be able to trust you, and you need to be able to trust them. And that's something that's built. Trust is something that's given,
Mm,
right? And that's not something that happens overnight. That's something they just have to know that you're there and you'll listen.
yeah, yeah,
Because sometimes people want to unload, and this is true in life. People want to unload about something. They don't want you to do anything about it.
yeah.
They don't want you to fix it. They just want to unload about it. All
Hmm.
right, well, and that's important. Sometimes, as guys, we're always trying to fix something, and sometimes your spouse just wants to unload for a
Yeah,
while.
yeah.
Okay.
They want to
And same
save.
thing for us, right? Just
Right,
want to
right.
unload.
A judgment-free zone. I just want to talk. I just
Yes.
want to talk. Okay, okay. You've said that when you lose someone, the old you dies. Who is the new you that emerges from the experience, from your experience?
That's up to you,
Mm,
right? We both know, I know stories of people who have lost children and it destroyed their lives.
mm. Yeah, me
They
too.
turned to alcohol or drugs or suicide, all of the above. The new you is up to you. The new you can be a better you. I'm a different man than I was before July 10th of 2005. I I just am.
Mm.
I look at things differently. But the big thing there is to not play this blame game and this person should have done this, and that comes back to the forgiveness part, right?
Hmm.
You just you have to create it.
Yeah.
You have to create that person, and that is on you.
Mm. So it's all still our choice on who we want to
Yeah,
evolve. We can use this to transform us into something extraordinary or for self-destruction.
yeah,
It's interesting how a lot of crossroads have those two decisions. What are you going to do? You know, um, and doing nothing is still a decision. You know,
yes,
yeah, yeah. And sometimes I think
yes.
that's the
Good
worst
point.
one.
Yeah, yeah.
hmm If Kevin could see what his story has become today, what do you think he would say?
I don't know. I think he would just give me a hug, and that would probably be it.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
just wow.
yeah.
Because when that happened, um, I had the distinct impression that Kevin was part of that
Hmm.
when I saw that light, and that he was giddy
Mm.
because he was excited.
Hmm. Yeah.
I didn't know what he was excited about, right? But
Hmm.
I knew that um, he knew
Yeah.
because God knows, right?
Yeah.
And that gets into a whole other world. But um, I think he would be pleased with it. He'd bust my chops about something.
Of course.
He would. That was our relationship. I would bust his chops and he'd bust my chops. And it's just, if his truck was broke down, he'd get upset with me because he'd want me to just fix it. And I'm like, I'm not fixing it unless you're here to help me. It's going to sit there. Oh, come on. No.
Cool. Very cool. Is there a lesson from Kevin's life that you still follow today?
It's probably the lesson of love, and that for me, life holds no guarantees. Well,
Yeah.
we think we're going to live out. We have this perception that this is how life's going to go. We're going to do this. We're going to all retire and live happily ever after.
Hmm.
And not all of us make it to that.
Yeah. It's really a message of making every moment matter. Yeah.
Yes, because
Yeah.
you never know. Like I said, when he walked out the door, I was just like, yeah, and I said, love you, bye, right? Just like you always do, and be careful. But you don't know when the last time you're going to see somebody is.
Mm.
Kind of teaches you to appreciate little things. I think I
Yeah.
appreciate little things a lot more than I used to.
Okay. Okay. With everything you've experienced, what does the word balance, mean to you?
For me, work is important, but it's not the most important thing. You have to, we have jobs that we think are stressful and all that kind of stuff, but that your primary job is your family
Yeah. Yeah.
and your faith. It's not about the next meeting. And it's interesting because people have quite often told me, well, you always seem to be relaxed when things are going wrong in a meeting or something like that. You seem to be relaxed. And I said, that's because I've already been through the worst thing that could ever happen in my life.
Yeah.
What happens here really pales in comparison to that, so we'll
Hmm.
deal with it.
Hmm. Yeah.
It kind of changes your perspective on
What's a big deal?
what's a big deal and what isn't.
Hmm. Yeah.
Because 20 years from now, you're not going to remember that meeting. You're not going to, you're going to think, yeah, well, whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Hmm. Mm. If someone is listening right now going through grief and loss, what would you want them to hear from you today?
God is there.
Yeah.
He's there. He loves you. Unload on him.
Hmm. Hmm.
But after you unload on him, listen,
Yeah.
because he'll have a response.
Yeah.
And
He could,
sometimes that's, as they say, it's a still small voice. It's not going to be a booming voice. It's going to be quiet and listen. Because part of prayer is being quiet.
yeah. Yeah.
Let him do the talking.
And the unloading on him is I think it's key because, I think a lot of us suffer from plastic prayers and
I like that.
he can take it. He can take our attitude, our anger, our resentments. He's a big God. He's not a little God. He can take it, and stop, basically stop being fake. He already knows you're pissed.
And if you have any doubts that anybody else has ever done that, um, I've never really, we started going through the Bible, and I will tell you, if you want to find out if God can handle it, read Psalms.
Mm.
David unloads over and over and over again, and he wants God to curse people, and as somebody said, go smite them, almighty smiter.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just, and he took it, right?
Right, right.
So unload on him. Just be ready to listen to the response.
Yeah, but even when I'm doing counseling with couples or families, when they have that real honest release of anger and just all that energy, it's the aftermath of that where they're quiet
Yeah,
and they can hear, you know, um, and it is a powerful moment. It is, it really, and it's magical, because we need to get there, you
yeah.
know. Hmm. Well, man, I appreciate you being on the show and sharing this story for you and Kevin. Do you have any last things you'd like, the audience to hear, to understand about you and the mission that you're on?
I'm still on that mission and reach out to me. If I have to travel out of state, I charge travel costs, but that's it.
Okay.
I will go wherever I need to and tell the story. You can get a hold of me at kevinslastwalk.com or on Facebook, it's Kevin's Last Walk. Um, Not real hard to track down if you want to track me down.
Wow.
I'd be happy to do it because that's again, if I don't charge for what I do because I don't believe in that.
Mm, wow. That's powerful. So if today's episode moved you as it moved me, I encourage you to share this with someone who needs to hear it. Whether it's a parent, a student, or an educator, or just a friend, conversations like this can save lives and change lives. And that's what this show is about. That's what the Balance and Breakthroughs is about. We want the breakthrough, you know. You can learn more about, Barry's work, as we said, Kevin's legacy by visiting Kevin's Last Walk online and following the mission on social media. And as always, this is about real people with real stories having real breakthroughs to become real heroes. And I just want to thank you again, Bear, for being on the show.
Thanks for having me on, Will.
Hey, no problem. And I will see you guys again next week for another episode of Balance and Breakthroughs. Peace.